I ran a workshop for travel business owners and tour operators recently, and someone joined, and before I'd even said anything, they'd said, guest communications, nobody reads them. And that struck me as something that's a really big problem. I know the amount of time running an experienced business myself that we spend answering questions and having the back and forth that we do with guests and clients. But if that back and forth is happening on things that you've already communicated, that's where we need to solve that issue, because that's time and money that you've already spent on communication that you're re-spending more of that time that you could be spending on other areas, like making their experience absolutely incredible, but you don't have time and headspace for that right now. That's what we're going to dive into in this video. We are going to go into how to identify the problem in which phase of your guest journey that communication is sitting, and those issues around guest communication, so that they get read, they're understood and confirmed by your guests, so that you have a smoother experience and they have a smoother experience. I did a video recently about a boutique hotel that I stayed at, which you will find linked in the video now, for you to go back and show this exact thing. The lack of communication happened to me, where I paid for something that, in my opinion, didn't live up to the price point and the expectation that I had of it. So with that in mind, let's dive into what's happening and what you can do about it. When guests don't read our communications, our first thought is to blame them and they aren't the right client for us, which might be the case if we've attracted the wrong client, but half the time it's not actually a them problem. It's sometimes the way that we've delivered it. When working as a ski and snowboard trainer, training other instructors to become instructors, we try and encourage people to think about the different ways that they communicate. Not everyone learns, understands, and communicates information in exactly the same way. And this might be said for your guest journey. And I would always say that it's not that they can't be bothered to communicate with you. They've paid money for this trip and they are probably really excited. It might just be that the way in which it's sent and the timing that you've sent it through, or the amount of information at that one point, might have been too overwhelming for them. I saw a post on LinkedIn the other day from a brand strategist that demonstrated this really clearly on how they had received an email about a visitor attraction that they were going to see, and it never once in that entire email said where the meeting point was. It shared so much other information, but the key bits of information were not there, or lost in a sea of a bunch of other stuff that was really nicely designed, but didn't answer the question that they would be asking at that point in time. And that draws me to one of the things that we're going to speak to a little bit later into this video, is how can you make sure that your communications land for that person at that exact moment that they need it to. One of the mistakes I see tour operators make at this point, if they haven't had communications be read, their first answer is to send more communications. But the more you pile on, the more you add in, the more layers of overwhelm that client is more likely to have. And if they're not reading your first emails, sending 2, 3, 4, or 5 more isn't going to make any difference. If anything else, it's going to turn the other way. The goal here is about reducing the amount of uncertainty that they have, so that they don't need to ask you all those silly questions. And what that means is sending out the communications that they do need to know, the key information, plus some of the nice to haves, in a format that you know that they are going to look at, read, understand, and confirm. There are 4 things that when I work with clients, or even for what we do behind the scenes at Reconnect, I'm always thinking about 4 different things in order to be able to understand my guest communication journey: the timing, the format, the clarity of information, and then the follow-up. And with that in mind, I guarantee you, and I'd probably put money on it, that your guests are way more likely to read your communications when you've understood how they like to be communicated and you've set your guest communications journey and your customer experience up in this way. If we think about our entire guest journey from end to end, so we've got pre-sale. So this is that awareness, nurturing, consideration, how they buy from you. They've got that sales process where they're going through the booking side of it, getting you a quote for a multi-day trip, understanding a little bit more and having a call with you and speaking to a member of your team. That might be just going through a booking process and booking onto the trip itself. Then you've got post-booking. So this is what I call your onboarding. This is how you're confirming with them that they're on the right trip. You're getting and understanding their preferences from them. This is the beginning stage straight after they've purchased. Then you've got the build-up. Now this is because in travel, someone might be booking your trips or itineraries months or could even be up to a year in advance, maybe more, depending on how far in advance you release those dates. You're probably already releasing your dates for 2027. So guests are booking onto those now, but they don't need all the information at this point. So the build up is a really important time to understand how we're communicating with guests, to build excitement, answer any questions, share all the information that they need to know, and then on the trip itself, and then post-trip. So how do we offboard them, say goodbye, and then how do we look at that retention strategy? This is your entire guest journey, and we map our communications across this kind of linear. I would say it's linear. It's not. It's more of a circle if you think about it, because retention then goes back to the start. But how do we map our communications across this entire sphere to be able to communicate with our guests? And the problem that we're solving here is the questions that you get asked over and over and over again that you have already answered in some form of communication, or the ones that you can group together and create something or simplify and streamline so those questions never come up. So firstly, we'll look at timing. Now, where I spoke about our guest journey before, timing is really, really important. So you're not going to send communications about what to expect, what to bring pre-sale. You can maybe share some expectation setting pre-sale or during the booking process. That expectation setting would probably have to be reiterated throughout, but you're not going to tell them what to bring before they've booked with you. You're sending that communication in the build up to get them excited and to make sure they understand what they need to pack, what they need to bring, what they need to keep in mind before they arrive. So that sits in the build up phase. And then you're asking yourselves, okay, well, how many days, weeks or months out am I going to be sending that communication? When are they thinking about what to bring? Are there things that they would actively have to go out and buy that they probably don't have, depending on their experience level of what adventures or trips or itineraries that you might have with them? If you're horse riding across Kyrgyzstan, they're probably going to need riding gear that they may not already have if they are beginners or they're at an intermediate level of horse riding. That might not be something that they already own. So the different types of communications, working on when it's going to be sent is something that if I'm going through, there's questions that I would want to know straight away once I've booked, about making sure that I've got all the information I need, making sure that I'm collecting all client information that I need to book anything that needs to be booked in advance, whether that's flights, whether that's accommodation. If that information needs to be collected, I collect that straight away, so that then the client doesn't need to give me anything else later down the line, and I'm not going back and forth with them to ask them loads and loads of questions. I've got everything that I need in order to be able to do everything else. And then what I'm doing after that is drip feeding information through to them so that they get all the things that they need at the right time when they're probably thinking about it. And if there's other ways that I can do that so we can make it more interactive and bring them along the experience with us, that leads me nicely into my second point, which is about format. What format do we send these communications in? Is it email? Is it text message? Is it a guest portal? Is it through social media? Is it through a physical phone call or a Zoom call? Or is it through a PDF itinerary, which I strongly encourage you to to have, but also to start moving away into more interactive ways that we can take guests along the journey. I've seen some incredible guest portals for things like homestays that I implemented for a client, where we sent the client an app that they could then log in, give their reservation number, and it would give them all the information about the stay. They could also book any extra experiences that they had at that point through the app itself, and they'd give the information, they'd book it before they arrived, and then they would be able to enhance their experience or enhance their stay when they were there, because they had everything booked before they came, which is also something that they would do with them on a call. So it's just thinking about, when do we send it? How are we sending this? So and how much information goes into that email, for example. How much a text message is different. So that's going to be smaller amounts of information. If it's email or on social media, we don't like paragraphs don't necessarily work. So how can we make sure that the guest has exactly what they need? And this even goes down to like, how do we structure the email? What information goes first? What information comes second? Do we share it with photos? Do we share it just as plain text? Like, these are things that you can think about in order to make sure that that format is easily readable, and it is something that it's in a way that they like to communicate. Potentially, if they're visual learners, they might want something that they engage with. If they're audio or written learners, they might want to read something or have a call with you to hear something. If they are cognitive learner, they might want to understand more information. So PDFs, guidebooks, links and resources that they can go to understand about the area would be really beneficial. Or if there's someone that doesn't really read that information, you need to give them the key information so they can just turn up and enjoy it. Which takes us on to point number 3, which is about clarity of information. So going back to how I structured that email, how I structured that communication, and going back to that LinkedIn post that I saw about the visitor attraction, where is the information in your email or in your text message? How clear are you on what they need to know and what is a nice to have? And finally, follow up. If after doing all of those things that guests haven't responded to you, and that's information that you need to know or you're waiting on from them, or the communication with them just drops off, how are we following up with them to make sure that we have everything that we need, or to make sure that nothing's changed, or to confirm that they've read, they've understood, and they are ready for the experience that you're about to take them on? Speaking to different business owners or different individuals that have either booked experiences or trips, but also people that just buy services in general, we often forget very quickly, and I say this from experience, I talk about myself in this, sometimes I need someone to go, hey, have you seen my email that I sent you last week? Because my inbox gets really busy and I need someone just to check in or chase me when I'm thinking about 15 other things. Now, depending on who you're working with, if you're working B2B, this is probably even more relevant. For us at Reconnect, when we run our experiences, I have a key contact that I work with, but when I'm sending out other various communications like forms, NDAs, things like that for our transformative retreats, there are people that I'm sending information through to them that I need responses. And sometimes they'll reply to one thing, but they might miss something else. So what I will do is give it 5 days, go back to them and say, hey, did you catch this part of the email? We need to finalize these areas and I'm still missing this information from you. Sometimes that's all it takes for them to respond and fill in the information that's missing. Sometimes they might need something a little bit extra. Sometimes you go through then the key contact, and it really depends on the type of business or the clients that you're working with. If you're B2B or B2C, it's really dependent on what travel experiences you run and you offer. But if you have someone to follow up with, make sure that you have really clear two-way communication and they know when you're going to be communicating certain information as well, because that makes it so much easier for you to then follow up, because you've got specific set dates that they're aware of as well, that shares the responsibility of making sure that all the comms that are being sent out are being read and being understood. I want to help you identify where this shows up in your travel business. We're going to tell you that this isn't really about your communications, so to speak. It is, but it's more so, and how to understand where the problem really is, where you are spending most of your time. What I mean by that is if you have a look at all the communications and the back and forth that you and your team have with guests, and I want you to identify where specifically you spend the most time and feel the most frustrated about what's coming back or the questions that you're getting and the ask that they're giving you. Because the 4 things that we have identified and outlined that we have gone through in order to how you can adapt your communications and what's important and what I would recommend to look at, where you go into your guest journey and what you actually change, what you think might be a problem in the pre-sale phase, it might actually be that what you need to focus on, and something that came out of the workshop that I did, was focusing on retention and referrals. And you're spending so much time on acquisition because you actually haven't got a referral strategy or retention strategy in place to encourage guests to come back and book again. You can focus there. That might be where you need to spend your time refining, updating, and looking at the format, the timing, the clarity of information, and the follow-up. Or what you might identify when you get there is actually, we didn't have enough information when we onboarded our clients. And it might actually be that you've got all this information in your onboarding, but you're not doing anything with it. So what you need to look at is not pre-sale or retention, is going into your onboarding and going, how do we store this information? And at what point do we then bring this back up to be able to use that information to be able to do more for our existing clients? Once you solve these issues with guests not reading your comms, think about how much time you spend on this right now. That is how much time you will save. And that time saved could be put into areas like collating things that you speak and you say to guests. You can build it into automated systems that answer the questions before they come to you. They can also be put into areas to help you refine the experience even more, but they allow you the headspace and the time to be able to do the things that only you can do because your expertise, your incredible travel advisors, and your experts that you've got within your team are able to go deeper onto those destinations, find new pockets of experiences they didn't have before because their time's not being absorbed in areas like answering the smallest questions that you've already given the answers to, but your guests didn't read them. So with that in mind, if you take one thing from this video, it's don't try and fix your entire guest journey all at once. Don't try and fix every communication. Pick one area, either pre-sale, sales process, onboarding, build up, the trip itself, or the goodbye and the repeat booking strategy, and understand what the communications need to be or could be at that moment, specifically drawing into the phase that you spend the most time on. Start there and then move on to the next one and the next one. You're not trying to solve everything all at once, because if you've got no time already, piling more onto your plate isn't going to help. It's picking the area that you can identify the problem, map it out really clearly as to what the communication is, how you're communicating it, what the format is, how are you going to understand if they've confirmed and they've read it, and how are you following up on that? Because that alone might change so much for you that you didn't already know. If you loved this video, or you want more videos on specific topics like this, head to the channel, hit subscribe, or drop a comment on what it was or an experience that you've had that you want my perspective on, or you want to share something that's gone really, really well for you. I would love to know in the comments. But I dive into more videos like this on my channel once every 2 weeks. And I have my newsletter, The Long Stay, where we break down these concepts in more depth, that I go into every week with more behind the scenes things of my inner thoughts, insights that can help change, develop, refine your travel business so that you as a founder can find more time to work on it, out of it, or to help it grow. I'll see you in the next one.